So Alex, I spoke with a company last week that spent $108,000 in the last 12 months on their website that now needs to get completely redone.
They spent $108,000 and it needs to be completely redone. That's a huge amount of money for nothing. Any other business owners, what should they learn from this? What should they do? Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Alex Winter, and I am here with Vin Gaeta, Head of Web Services here at Impact. Vin, welcome to the show, man.
Great to be here, Alex.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Thank you for joining us today. And we're talking about the hidden costs of a cheap website and people trying to build websites for themselves, DIY, maybe they're starting a new business, whatever the case may be. But we really want to hone in on why you should probably not do that if you don't have experience and get your expert opinion on what other options are out there for people.
There's a lot of options.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's talk a little bit about, like, I'm instantly like, brought to you by Squarespace, or this is a Wix advertisement, right? Like those sites are great to like use a template and to start to build a website and to get things going. But what may be not so great about that as you move forward and start to scale your business?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I love this question so much, Alex, because there's a hidden cost with everything that you likely do, right? So look at it like a car. You're not going to get a Lexus or a Mercedes-Benz for your 15-year-old, right? So
I would hope not. Yes, I would hope.
I mean, maybe you are, but you're likely going to start with a starter car, right? So I liken a Wix or a Squarespace to that starter vehicle. It is great for those that might be a little bit more budget focused, but it's not going to be that long-term vehicle that you're going to drive for the next 15, 20 years. It's going to be the thing to get you from A to Z now. Now, will it be more cost effective to go with that? Yes, because there's templates, there's pre-baked stuff. It's built for anyone that doesn't know anything about websites, which awesome. Heck yeah, everyone and their mother can go do it. That's beneficial for some folks. But with those cost savings, with the ease of use, you're also running into things where you're sacrificing some long-term scalability, some functionality and settings, because you're going to go do it yourself. You're not going to have an expert to kind of guide you by the hand step by step and say, why are you doing that, Alex? Why is that on that page? No, Wix gives you the ability to do whatever the heck you want, right, wrong, in between. You run that show. So yeah, it's going to be a heck of a lot more cost effective. You're probably looking from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 if you want to do a DIY out of the box Wix site.
Right. And that's probably the biggest appeal, right? But you're starting out, budget's tight, so you have to be mindful of those things and mindful of your bottom line. So you're trying to save a buck and use a tool like Wix or a template type website builder to save on those costs.
That's it. Yeah. And listen, templates and themes are great if built correctly, if built with the user in mind and built with long-term scalability in mind. Mm-hmm. Most themes and templates aren't built with that in mind because they're there to generate money, right? They're there to be efficient and built quickly so that developer or company can get their bang for their buck and have it be repeatable. It's about making easy money, not necessarily about making your life easy for the money that you spent. It's about making easy money. That's a big difference.
Interesting.
Now, the right themes, and there are themes out there that have tender love and care put into them. We've created one at Impact all around They Ask You Answer and some messaging best practices. But it was a labor of love, not a labor of, I want to monetize the heck out of this. It's for the right people that need that type of experience. Other hidden costs that you might get with a cheaper option. So we talked Wix, we talked templates, right? There's cheaper agencies. It is not to say that agencies necessarily do a bad job. Mm-hmm. But so many agencies have been taught and trained to build a website quickly or build a website over 6 months to 12 months, because that's still a model some folks do. And then set it up where I'm latching you as my client onto a retainer with me to get updates made, to improve the website, to actually make the thing work to the best of its ability. And that's part of your hidden costs. I built you a website. Maybe you spent 30 to 80 grand on said website, depending on complexity, customizations, yada, yada. Oh, and now, by the way, you have to be latched onto me for the next 10 years to get anything out of your website. And you're going to pay X amount a month to this agency month over month. We used to do that, man. It doesn't work great. You don't get the best results as the client. And frankly, for me as the agency, it's just raking in money month over month to do stuff for you.
Right. Right. I think there's a mentality too that you build the site, you use a freelancer, use an agency, maybe use a template tool, whatever you decide. But then you build it and you launch it, and people think like, yeah, I launched it. It's done,
did it.
right? And that's it.
Confetti rains from the sky. Champagne bottles are popping. We launched the site. Marketing's clapping. We did a great job.
Prestige worldwide. Yeah.
And then sales is like, well, that thing doesn't work for me.
No.
Or the CEO's like, well, it doesn't do this. And now marketing has to go likely back to said agency or developer and say, hey, can you make this update? Can you go do all of these things? And then agency's like, yeah, but I have to charge you for that. Mm-hmm. Or you have to be on this monthly maintenance agreement for X amount of money, or this, that, or the other. The biggest thing that we always hear, and you will have likely heard this before, well, you need an SEO retainer for that, or you got to go work with this company.
Or let me create a ticket for your request, right? Yeah. Yep.
If we're doing it right, you should have the ability in-house to update your website. So it's consistently evolving. It's not, we launched our website, great, on to the next thing. It's great, we launched our website. What things can we now improve with what we're seeing from our users? What things can our team go optimize and test and tweak? That is where the biggest power of websites and the web as a whole comes into play, when we're actually seeing what our users want, what they're interacting with, and pivoting to meet their demands live and in time, week over week.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it sounds like what you do and what web specialists should really be focusing on is the end user and how they use the site, not how you think they should use it or what you want on the site. It really needs to be user focused and user centric from the get-go.
That's one of the biggest things. And frankly, that's where a lot of cost can potentially come from. It's the strategy. You can spin up a website fairly cost effective, but the hidden costs of a fast, cheap website are likely the long-term ramifications of not having a sound strategy, not thinking about how your users actually going to interact with each environment and story you're telling on each specific web page. And once you have that quick, we did our website, champagne's popped, confetti's fallen, we feel good, right? We got the quick win. Are you actually looking at how that quick win is now performing? Are you going back and implementing new changes, or was it a set it and forget it? Because that is the biggest hidden cost of one of the cheap websites, is that set it and forget it mentality, where it's not even set up for you to be able to update. And you're likely latched onto an agency. You have no control.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem, because if there are global updates or using certain plugins or third party, like that could break your website. It could break your business.
It could destroy a lot.
Yeah.
And it's time and time again, we have companies that come to us, small businesses, right? That were sold this model of, you need to go to a web agency. The web agency needs to build you a website, and then you're going to pay web agency to make marketing updates to your website month over month, year over year, until you die, or your website dies, or your whatever happens, right? It's just, we're going to do it until the cows come home.
Whichever one comes first, right? Yeah.
And that's not where the best results come into play, because your agency is not an extension of your team all the time. They are literally just taking your dollars. They're not an expert in your space. They don't know the nuances of what's working week over week as you're talking to people. Think about roofing companies. Things may shift in those conversations, right? You may need to take a piece that maybe this new feature that you're talking about all the time is really resonating. Have you updated that on your website? Well, no, we have to go reach out to our agency. No, because now you're likely spending additional cost, or you're paying for that maintenance plan, which, hey, hidden cost, unexpected cost. You have to now pay someone to make an update that your team should be able to make. So that is one of the biggest hidden costs of a cheaper website, is you have to look at what maintenance plans or update fees come with that cheaper website. You have to look at the long-term scalability of that website and the strategy component that goes into it. And make sure that it's the right choice for y'all. Because if you go with a cheaper website now, that may last you the next 1 to 2 years. Whereas that next website could be that same price as your cheaper website or more, because you didn't just do a better future-proof website out of the gate with the right strategy, the right touch points, the right things for your business and your user.
Yeah. So if I'm getting what you're saying correctly, it really stems from the top down, where it's like the website should be part of the business strategy and not just a shiny object sort of thing that's out front.
It can't be, Alex.
Right.
Website's got to be your best salesperson. And if you've heard anything that I've said in any of my previous stuff at Impact, Your website's the only thing that people see 24/7, never takes vacation, doesn't ask for a raise. It's there working for you. It's likely the first touch point any user is going to find. I pull out the computer in my pocket, I ask it a question, I go to your website.
Right.
If it's not clear, if it's not intentional, and if it's not set up to be constantly evolving, it's not going to be the best salesperson. It's not going to have the strongest message. It's not going to answer our questions as users. And if that happens, I'm likely going to hit the back button and find someone that makes it easier for me.
Right. So
all of those are hidden costs, because if you're not thinking about that up front, it's going to cost you dollars and cents down the road, either missed opportunities on your website or having to redo stuff that was done incorrectly or maybe not fully thought out in the first place.
Sure. So when you talk to companies, and I know you have a lot of experience doing this and a lot of time and effort focusing and trying to shift the mindset for business leaders, what's that conversation like when they want to save a buck, they have a tight budget, and trying to get them to understand the value of investing in something like this and how it's going to eventually return? Like, what does that journey look like?
Honestly, it starts with an assessment of the current state.
Okay.
Because so often, this has happened as recently as last week, we had an HVAC company come to us, and the current agreement is set up so they are locked in for 12 months. It is hard for them to leave and do something new, and what they're doing is not currently working. They were set up in that initial environment where we're going to build your site, we're going to do it fairly cost effective, we're going to amortize your spend over 12 months because you're going to get locked in with us, and they're on a proprietary framework. They don't own any of their code base. They can't take their site and leave. It's hard for them.
Right,
so
they're stuck.
That's step one of, this is what we're looking at current state. This is what it looks like to get yourself out of that type of relationship and environment, because at the end of the day, do I want you to work with myself and my team for a long term? Yes, but not because you're handcuffed and shackled to me like this company was. It's because there's value there, right? There's experiments we can run. There's data we can analyze together and things that I can teach you and coach your team on to improve your website. But it starts with those table stakes of, what does the right environment for your team look like? Do you have someone that can and should be making these updates? Usually the answer is yes. We have someone that's running content or handling our marketing motions and can take that commitment in-house. So we start there and make sure that everything that we're doing is set up for that end user. It's got to be flexible. So no one should ever need to touch code to make an update to their website. If you do, it might not be built as flexible as it could be for y'all. Now, does that mean that you will never need a developer in the future? No. But those are conversations that we need to have. What does your team look like?
Right.
What does the future state of your team look like? We work with some clients that do have developers on house. Cool. We can set this up in a different way for you than we ever normally would have. Or it might be that mom and pop HVAC shop that got locked into a bad agreement, needs something shorter term that's not going to break the bank or their budget, and is going to have staying power for the next 3 to 4 years. Will you need iterations and tweaks? Sure. Should it be a start over and rebuild your entire website, which we see a lot? Absolutely not. It should be an evolution of what we currently have if it was set up correctly in the short term.
Right. And that's what you hear from a lot of agencies, and what I've been my experiences in the past too is, you need to redo it, or you switch to a new agency and the first thing they want to do is a complete website redesign, and they're going to take everything that you're using and it goes in the garbage and they're starting fresh, which is expensive and time consuming and all the things that can really hinder the growth of your business.
And there are times and places where the burn it down mindset needs to happen first. And I am one of the first people, if you can't currently edit your site, and if we look under the hood and there's really no way to optimize the current environment, burning it down and restarting it is going to be the best recommendation. But if there is a way to work in what you currently have, if you have some of the right kind of bones to the build, you can optimize on top of that and end up having some cost savings. Most folks don't have that initial setup where it's already flexible and they come to me and they're like, all right, we just need to build on top of what we already have.
Right.
Usually is rigid. It's proprietary. I see in different industries, the marine industry, for argument's sake, there are agencies out there that have proprietary frameworks built on top of a WordPress where they will take you, they put you into that, and then you're kind of locked into what they've built and what they've baked for their homegrown system. And yeah, it's built on other stuff, but that's a hidden cost. Now you are really tied to this system. And while it was set up for the marine industry, and I'm sure there's pros and cons there, it might not be the best for the ideal content engine. There's limited reporting potentially. There's limited functionality where you can change the website. All of those things stack up long-term in terms of budget and costs needed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And most folks don't talk about that from the get-go.
You're talking about it.
Trying to.
I love that. So flexibility is huge. That's the key takeaway is flexibility and thinking strategically of how your website plays into your business and what that looks like longer term than just immediately and as cheaply as possible. Talk a little bit too about data and how important like the back end of your site is too, and being able to have access to that and analyze it and how that plays into your business making decisions.
Yeah. So I'll start with the solution, Alex.
Okay.
That's why we use HubSpot for 99.9% of our sites. We still build in WordPress and Shopify if we need e-commerce stuff, right? But the reporting and the ability to use that data is something that is often forgotten. And having that ecosystem set up, it's not as simple as just jumping into a Wix or a Squarespace, because those are set up, again, it's quick, it's easy, and you're not going to have the whole thing that you need. You're not going to have someone holding your hand necessarily to understand how to tie those pieces together. So a tool like HubSpot, using the CMS Hub and the reports in there, you can easily see areas that you can start testing and optimizing and experimenting with. If you're not doing that, your website will likely become more costly because you're going to miss things that can make giant improvements to the current state, that can get big wins, get better leads right now, and you're going to end up redoing your website in 3 years. That's what happens every single time if we don't think about what those motions need to look like. If we're not thinking about what data we need to collect and looking at the right reports and what the conversion flows are from the get-go, so we can track that in the long run.
How many companies do you, in your experiences, have you interfaced with where they aren't plugged in with a portal like HubSpot, like a CMS, or they don't have access to data or analytics and they're not even leveraging that? Does that happen a lot? Is that a pretty common thing?
It's very common.
Really?
I would say out of my conversations each week, I mean, it depends on the sector, right? So if we're looking at service businesses like roofers or contractors, most folks are not in a system like HubSpot. Most sites are on WordPress,
right,
and
on
using
WordPress.
Tools like Google Analytics or other analytics data. It's not all tied into one centralized location where you have CRM talking with website data all in one place like you can with HubSpot. And listen, I love HubSpot. I can harp on HubSpot, but it is the best tool that I have found to get everything in one place where the marketer doesn't have to have a lot of tech knowledge to control their environment and optimize for the user. Can you do that in other systems? Absolutely. Heck yes. Pros and cons, highs and lows, and finding the right expert in that situation. But at the end of the day, if there's 3 things you're going to look at as you're entertaining redoing your website, and you don't want to make a bad misstep in the get-go, knowing that budget's going to be a thing, right? There's 3 things you need to actually look at. What is the future plan of this? Is this a quick website that we need because we don't have a site up now that we can get away with the next 2 years and then potentially redoing as this scales? That's something that we need to talk about and consider. Mm-hmm. What's the end goal for our users and for our team? So that's one conversation I would have in one breath. If the end goal for our users is easy to update, it's always going to be the best experience for them, that's going to factor into how you're building it out of the gate and what functionality you need as a company. What it's going to do for you as the business in that same breath. If we want this to be our best salesperson, if we want our team to be able to keep this message alive and make sure it's helping shorten sales cycles and answer questions, you have to make sure that the agency or person building it for you has that in mind, and that they're giving you settings so that you can control this thing. Because without that thought of, if my user goes in and changes this, what other settings might they need? They will inevitably have to come back to you.
Right. They'll have to come back to you, and then how much more manpower and tech and money and all the extra pieces come into play.
Well, we didn't think about that functionality, Alex, so we have to add. And listen, those are some conversations that sometimes have to happen with our clients as well. We never talked about this functionality. It's not something we had pre-baked in or have seen before. Let's talk about what that could look like and if it makes sense. But you're not beholden to me for any of that.
Right.
And you don't necessarily need to come to my team in certain cases. You can go to anyone if it's built right, because anyone with development knowledge should be able to build on top of it. The third thing that I would look at, How is that company, agency, freelancer setting your company up for the long-term success? What does the training look like? What does the education and thought transfer look like in that? Because it's very easy for anyone to set up a website. You can go to Upwork or any freelance place and have a developer do it, and it will be cost effective, air quotes, cost effective, hidden costs and things, right? Short-term cost effective. But if they're not teaching your team how to do it, if they're not actually spending the time to make sure that you're doing it, you're going to be beholden to someone else to make those edits. There's a cost there, whether it's time and efficiency or actual money spent on the human making the updates. You're going to have some hidden costs there. And same thing with the SEO, right? If it's not set up for you to continually look at those things, to blog on a consistent basis, the best SEO is consistent content. We know that. Google wants that. If you're not set up with those things and the people aren't talking to you about that, there's going to be unexpected costs in the long term, either from inability to convert leads and the cost of not being able to do good business and the missed opportunities, or in the actual budget needed to make updates to your website long term.
Wow. So really, to me, it sounds like the hidden costs of cheaping out on your website is not having the control and having the power to really make the decisions needed to scale your business, versus having an agency or someone else maybe sometimes hold you hostage or not give you any control, where you're paying exponentially more money to have them fix things that you could have already had. So from an education standpoint, how do you educate businesses about this that maybe don't have a website, or where do you bridge that gap to get people to understand this and see the value in it? Because it does seem like there's a learning curve there that people are just completely overlooking.
It's hard, and it's talking about it more and creating more content like this where people will hear it and say, yeah, that's kind of what I have right now. That's not what I want for the next round, but it's prevalent. And like I said, we at Impact used to be that model years and years and years and years ago, right? Let's build a website, put you on a maintenance retainer to make updates and do the thing for you. And it's not efficient. It ends up costing companies longer and more in the long run, because you have to wait for my team to do it instead of you being able to update the content yourself, or do X, Y, and Z, or go review the data yourself to run an experiment and just test your homepage to see if you get an increase in your click-through rate. Like, that's crazy town, because you should own your business's success. And if your website's not set up for that, and that's the first potential touch point of a prospect in your buyer's journey, if you don't control that, who is? And that by itself can be one of the biggest hidden costs of the website. If you're not controlling it, someone else is, and then you don't control your marketing and sales journey.
Yeah, and I feel like most business leaders that I've met in my journeys want all the control. They're very much in charge of their own destinies, and they have the vision to take and scale their company where they want it to go. So this is just one of those pieces that plays into that, which is, it's just very important. And I think you need to be mindful of not cheapening out. And sometimes spending a little less upfront actually doesn't cost you less in the long term. It costs you a lot more.
It absolutely can. And especially in the web world, cheap is easy. Websites can be expensive if done correctly. And there's ways to make efficiencies so that you can have a budget-friendly website, get it done fairly quickly, talking 3 to 6 months, depending on size of site, and give you the future scalability and flexibility that you need. There's also a lot of companies and folks out there that will give you a Wix website or give you a dumbed down WordPress website, have it done in whatever timeline needed, and then leave you to your devices or latch you on to a maintenance update agreement. And those can be costly long-term, like we've said, and not to beat the horse, but it's so much of how are you looking at the long-term relationship with this partner or person that is setting up such a core part of your business. And listen, there's companies out there that are going to look at the website as just brochureware. You're probably okay with just a website on Wix if you just want a brochure. If you don't want something that's going to work for you, by all means, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think that's going to do the best thing for your business. And frankly, that's more sunk hidden costs in my experience, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking for something that's going to be a user journey, it's going to have a considered funnel, it's going to work for our company and our prospects, that's a conversation that needs to be done up front so there are less hidden costs down the road. Because that's not going to be the cheapest option out of the gate, but it will likely be the best option for your company long term because of the ROI on that initial investment. Mm-hmm. And if it's set up soundly with flexibility, that ROI is going to be through the roof. You're going to be able to create an engine that just brings in the business month after month.
That's amazing. I love that. So just the last thought here, last question. A lot of people, you and I are nerds. We love marketing. We love building websites. We love all these tools and tech that we get to leverage every day. But for people that are like roofers or car dealers or people that aren't really as heavily focused in the tech side of things like we are, there's a gap here. So what resources do they have? Like, where would you recommend they go to educate and learn more? And like, you're helping us out huge here, but like, what other resources are there for people that are embarking on this journey and don't know where to start?
The two big ones I'll give you, shameless plug, check out impactplus.com, the blog, the learning center there. Jump into the community and ask questions on websites. If you're about to go get into a website conversation and you're not sure that it's going to be the right step, reach out to me. I am happy to just vet what folks are telling you. I'll probably give you some recommendations of what it could look like if we were to support you there. But it's get curious. So check out our site. There's a lot of education on what good, bad agencies could look like, what questions to ask in that process, what good websites look like, right? What you need to be set up for long-term success. HubSpot has a wealth of knowledge around marketing, sales, and what good websites look like as well. And there's a reason why we build 99.9% of our sites on HubSpot. It's user-friendly. It's end user-friendly. It's got a lot of reporting capabilities in there. Is HubSpot cheap? No. But just like we're talking about, the cost of not going the right direction for the long-term scalability, those are two awesome areas to look at. Another blog that I frequent a lot just to see what is changing in the world of conversions is cxl.com. Love the guys over there. They give some really good things that you can go take a look at from a user testing and optimization standpoint to help your website be the best person that it can be on the web.
Vin, that's awesome. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. Thanks for being on the show. I always love talking about these things with you. I feel like I learn so much every time we chat. So I really appreciate all the knowledge. Why don't you look at the camera and tell everybody who you are, where they can find you if they want to reach out about anything web related?
Yeah, if anyone out there is looking to geek out on all things web, get some insight into your current state, what the future state might look like, or just talk about some geeky stuff around SEO or technical things on the web world, I'm Vin Gaeta. I'm head of web strategy here at Impact and can't wait to have that conversation with you.
Vin, thank you again. Everybody, thank you for watching and we'll see you on the next one.